The story begins back in 1839 when Austin's very first municipal burial ground was laid out on a gentle hill just east of what is now Interstate 35. Originally called City Cemetery, it spread to about 40 acres and slowly filled up with the remains of everyone from humble pioneers to high-ranking state officials. By 1907, the city decided City Cemetery was about as catchy as Plain Park and officially renamed it Oakwood. A few years later, they annexed more land just across Comel Street, carving out separate sections for Black, Latino, Jewish, and for those who'd run out of pennies, paupers in unmarked graves. Speaking of penny pinching, the paupers section on the south side was notorious. If you died broke, your grave was typically unmarked, and after a few years, the city would dig you up for recycling. It's the ultimate use it or lose it policy, Estate Edition. But wait, there's gore. In the 19th century, local medical schools took a hands-on approach to learning by borrowing fresh corpses from recent graves. Legend has it that more than a few restless spirits now wander the grounds, murmuring, "Knock first," to passing ghost hunters. Of all the phantom regulars, Eula Phillips is the most tragic and talked about. A 17-year-old who was brutally murdered with an axe on Christmas Eve in 1885, she was buried anonymously in the old grounds. Rumor says her spirit drifts between headstones, softly crying, perhaps hoping someone will finally leave her a stocking. Then there's Confederate General Thomas Greene, who some say haunts the place in full uniform. Every now and then, visitors claim they hear phantom hoofbeats at night, like he's stuck reenacting his final charge into an eternal battle. Another notable specter is Susanna Dickinson, an Alamo survivor who eventually lived and died in Austin. Her apparition, wearing a dress from another century, is said to appear near her grave, as if still trying to make sense of Texas history's biggest plot twist. Beyond the named ghosts, the atmosphere gets strange near the northwest fence, along Navasota Street, where paranormal junkies report sudden cold spots, whispers in the wind, orbs of light flitting through trees, and EMF readings jumping as if someone left the supernatural coffee machine on. Today, Oakwood is a respected historic landmark. While the charm of broken stones and mossy monuments has been restored and guided tours are offered, the living still tread carefully, because even with modern upkeep, the cemetery's most stubborn residents seem to love old-school ambiance. So next time you stroll through downtown Austin near Dishfalk Field, consider a detour into Oakwood. You'll find rich slices of Texas history, heartwarming family plots, tragic paupers, restless ghosts, and enough Victorian gloom to make any ghost hunter reach for extra batteries and maybe a hug. Strolling past an imposing Victorian mansion redolent of old money and bigger egos. This is the Littlefield House, built in 1893 by Major George Littlefield, a Confederate veteran turned cattle baron extraordinaire. Its red brick facade practically demands attention, as though daring you to look away. The house was meant to be a family haven, designed to shelter not just George and Alice, who sadly suffered infant losses, but their 29 nieces and nephews, all supported by George's fortune. Frankly, it sounds like he invented the world's first family condo complex. Alice was no wallflower. A painter, storyteller, and pianist, she filled those ornate rooms with art and music. She even planted a towering Himalayan cedar on the lawn, complete with imported soil. Because why not have a mini forest next to your house? But here's where things go. Victorian Gothic. As guests whisper, George became convinced Alice might be kidnapped by Yanks whenever he stepped out. His solution, a locked attic. The poor woman spent years trapped up there with only doctors and nurses for company. That kind of confinement leads to mental strain, and Alice, understandably, suffered bouts of terror, yelling, running stairs, even shrieking. 3 nurses staffed the house, effectively turning the place into a genteel sanatorium, minus the gift shop. Here's the twist. After George died in 1920, she recovered almost overnight and lived another 15 years in relative peace. That makes one wonder, was it grief that healed her, or liberation from attic jail? Today, the house belongs to the University of Texas, hosting events during the day and housing offices upstairs. But come nightfall, students and staff swear that invisible feet pad across the floors and doors creak open by themselves. The piano has become a spectral soloist. Quiet melodies drift through empty rooms, always in the key of Alice. Those who hear it say, "Oh, that's Aunt Alice playing again," as if she's simply practicing for no reason. One tale involves a housekeeper who died on the premises. Her apparition reportedly drifts through the halls. Others see faces pressed to windows, silent and watchful, like Victorian voyeurs casting shadows into the night. There's even talk of a darker entity, a chaotic wraith running upstairs, moaning and singing discordantly, maybe angry at being locked away. The rumor is that Alice's spirit keeps the wraith in check, as if she's haunting tenant management. One night, a security guard stayed late, locked up, and heard footsteps bounding above, as if someone was sprinting through. No one was there, of course, but he sprinted the rest of the way out himself. So next time you wander by 24th and Whitey's after dark, smile and wave at that cedar. Behind its branches lurks a house full of love, loss, and spectral guardians. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, a little pianissimo in the night and a soft moan from upstairs just make the place feel alive. Downtown Austin has always had its share of quirky spots, but the Handlebar was in a league of its own. A bar that didn't just serve drinks, it served them with a side of mustache flair and ghostly surprises. Tucked away in an old building that once operated as a funeral parlor, this bar came with a backstory that could make even the most seasoned G.H. Hunter pause before ordering a cocktail. Long before patrons were sipping whiskey sours on the rooftop, the space was filled with mourners, coffins, and one very illegal cremation that may or may not have started the entire haunting mess. When Handlebar opened, it did everything in its power to cover up the building's somber past with vintage vibes, adult-sized seesaws, and more mustache-themed decor than a barbershop quartet convention. But despite the good drinks and rooftop shuffleboard, the past had no intention of staying buried. Bartenders began to notice odd things, cold spots that wouldn't go away, whispers in the basement, and the lingering sense that someone, or something, was watching them from the shadows. And no, it wasn't just the guy in the ironic fedora. One bartender swore they heard a low whisper coming from under the bar late one night. Thinking a drunk customer had passed out below, they investigated, only to find nothing but air. When they turned to leave, the same voice whispered again, this time right next to their ear. You've never seen someone abandon a shift so fast. Let's just say that bartender didn't even clock out. And then there was the mysterious case of the handprints. Glowing, child-sized prints would appear on the walls behind the seesaw. Just float there like some ghost kid decided to leave a sticky note from the afterlife. By morning, they'd vanish. Clean wall, no prints, no explanation. Either someone had the most inconsistent cleaning habits in history, or the spirits were messing with the cleaning crew for laughs. Tour guides loved the place. It had all the ingredients of a haunted hotspot. Tragic history, unexplained phenomena, a spooky basement, and an upstairs bar where people claimed to feel someone brushing past them, even when the place was empty. The staff just started naming the ghosts like pets. Oh, that's just Gerald. He gets cranky after midnight. The real kicker? A few patrons said they'd seen a little girl out of the corner of their eye, only to look again and realize she was gone. One guy nearly spilled his old-fashioned swearing she tugged on his jacket. But when he turned around, there was no one there, except the bartender giving him a look that said, "Yep, that happens sometimes." Despite all the supernatural drama, the real mystery came when the Handlebar suddenly shut its doors. No big announcement, no heartfelt farewell post, just locked up, lights out. Some say it had to do with money trouble or leftover COVID fallout. Others whisper about less savory rumors involving shady activity and bad management decisions. Either way, one day you could get a whiskey with a ghost story on the side, and the next, you couldn't even get in. Whatever the reason, the closure left a mustache-shaped hole in the heart of Austin. The ghosts are probably still there, pacing the floors and wondering what happened to all the party people. Maybe they're finally getting some peace and quiet, or maybe they're planning their own reopening. After all, nothing says Austin weird like a haunted bar coming back from the dead. For now, the Handlebar sits silent, collecting dust and stories. But if you walk past it late at night and hear the faint sound of laughter, or a shuffleboard puck clacking in the distance, don't worry. It's just Gerald and the gang, still trying to figure out what happened to their bar. If you've ever strolled past the Tudor-style building sitting proudly on the corner of 12th and Lamar, you've probably wondered, is that an old pub? A haunted mansion? A medieval Pizza Hut? No, it's the Tavern, one of Austin's most legendary and ghost-infested bars. And it's got more stories than your grandma's attic. The building was constructed in 1916 by none other than Hugo Franz Quenet, the founder of UT's School of Architecture. It first opened in 1922 as Enfield Grocery, which is a charming name for what many believe doubled as a speakeasy and maybe even a brothel during Prohibition. Nothing screams family shopping experience like whiskey and poker upstairs. As Austin sizzled through the 1930s, the Tavern stood out by becoming one of the first air-conditioned buildings in town. In fact, the neon sign out front proudly boasted "air-conditioned" in giant letters, like it was the second coming of brisk November wind. That sign became an Austin icon. Forget craft beer. This place had cold air and cold drinks long before it was cool. Now, legend has it that the upstairs wasn't just for poker. Rumors swirled for decades that a brothel operated out of the second floor, and one particularly grim tale tells of a young girl named Emily, believed to be the daughter of one of the women who worked there. Supposedly, Emily was murdered by a jealous politician, and her body was hidden in a crawl space upstairs. In 2003, during a renovation, workers reportedly found a pair of small shoes in the wall. Yep, actual shoes. Cue the ghostly chills. No one could prove they belonged to Emily, but the timing and place matched the old stories a little too well for comfort. That's when things started getting weird. Staff began reporting strange events, TVs turning off mid-game, a cardinal sin in a sports bar, footsteps upstairs when nobody was there, and even cold fingers tapping on shoulders. One bartender swore she heard someone whisper her name in her ear, but when she turned, no one was there, except a terrified cook holding a plate of nachos like a shield. The mischievous spirit, believed to be Emily, is especially active when the bar is empty. Silverware gets tossed from drawers, lights flicker for no reason, and some claim to hear the crack of pool balls from an upstairs game room long after closing time. Either Emily's a fan of billiards, or she's really bad at subtle haunting. In 2018, paranormal investigator Stephen Bellew and a psychic medium visited the site for the Night Owl podcast. They described an overwhelming heaviness in the upstairs crawl space. No solid evidence of a body was found, but their EMF detectors went bonkers, and the medium claimed to feel a presence watching her from the shadows. Naturally, they burned some sage and booked it out of there. Today, the Tavern is owned by Shannon Sedgwick and Michael Shelton, who also run the iconic Esther's Follies. Not only is it still a go-to spot for burgers, wings, and local brews, but you can also catch murder mystery shows there, sometimes starring Emily's ghost herself. It's a dinner and a haunting. Tourists still flock to the Tavern for its food, beer, and ghostly atmosphere. It's even become a stop on several Austin haunted tours. Patrons love swapping their own paranormal stories over a plate of fries, because there's nothing like feeling a ghost brush your arm when you're double dipping your ranch. So next time you're in Austin and want a burger with a side of ghost, swing by the Tavern. Just don't be surprised if Emily flicks off your TV at the worst possible moment or snags a fry when you're not looking. She's been haunting the joint for decades. At this point, she might as well be on payroll. In the heart of downtown Austin, where the city's buzz never quite sleeps, the Omni Hotel rises with sleek confidence. At first glance, it's a modern marvel, a towering structure of glass and steel, serving as a temporary home for politicians, musicians, and unlucky tourists who accidentally booked during SXSW and had to sell a kidney to afford a room. But behind the complimentary mints and valet parking lies a history that's a little darker than what the bellhop will ever tell you. The Omni Hotel, as we know it today, opened in the 1980s, but its location sits on land that has seen centuries of change. Long before it was a cushy high-rise with rooftop pools and conference centers, this area was a part of Old Austin's business district, and rumor has it, a chunk of it was built right on top of a portion of an old burial ground. Of course, in Texas, if you throw a rock, you'll probably hit a haunted burial site. But this one seems to have stuck around. Construction crews working on the original foundation in the late 70s and early 80s reported strange things. Tools disappearing, equipment malfunctioning without reason, and one poor guy swore a cold hand grabbed his shoulder while he was alone. 30 feet below, street level. Naturally, they chalked it up to too much Lone Star beer, but the stories didn't stop once the hotel opened its doors. Guests began complaining about strange occurrences on the 14th floor. Of course, hotels famously skip labeling the 13th floor, but the spirits aren't fooled. Elevators stopping on the wrong floor, lights flickering, and strange whispers in the hallway were all part of the experience. Though the Omni staff preferred you focus on the plush bedding instead of the phantom moaning outside your room at 3:17 a.m. One of the hotel's most infamous legends centers around a woman in white. Because, of course, it's a woman in white. She's been seen walking the hallways late at night, her long gown trailing behind her, her face eerily blurred, as if she's stepping between two realities. Some believe she was a guest in the early days who tragically jumped, or was pushed, from a high balcony. Others say she's much older, a remnant of the burial ground beneath the hotel, looking for someone to acknowledge her sorrow. Either way, she's terrible at room service and won't leave a tip. Then there's the case of the haunted elevator. Several guests have reported getting in alone, pressing their floor number, only to be taken directly to the top floor with no explanation. When the doors open, there's no one there, but they hear footsteps walking away down the hallway. One brave soul followed those phantom steps and ended up locked in the stairwell for 3 hours with no cell signal and the ghost of bad decisions past. Housekeeping staff, who probably deserve combat pay, have their own stories. One worker on the night shift claimed she walked into a room to clean it and saw a man standing by the window. She greeted him, thinking he was a guest who hadn't checked out. But when she turned to grab her supplies and looked back, he was gone. The kicker? The window was open, and they were on the 17th floor. Some guests have reported waking up to the sensation of someone sitting on their bed. Not a person, not a dog, not even an overpriced minibar item. Just pressure. And when they turn over expecting a snoring spouse or kid, there's no one there. Just the imprint of something or someone that had been watching them sleep. If that doesn't make you check out early and sleep in your car, nothing will. There's even a legend among the hotel bartenders about a regular named Charlie, except Charlie isn't actually alive. According to the tale, Charlie was a traveling salesman in the 90s who stayed at the Omni every month, always ordered the same drink, bourbon neat, and always tipped generously. One night, he died of a heart attack in his room, but every now and then, late at night, a lone drink order will appear on the bar system with no guest to match it, and one of the older bartenders always pours it. "It's Charlie," he says with a shrug. "He always pays in spirit." Some folks have tried to debunk the hauntings, blaming power surges, draft events, or Austin's general weirdness. But even skeptics admit there's an undeniable vibe in certain parts of the hotel. One guy, a self-proclaimed ghost hunter/foodie, described the Omni as a place where the air feels just a little thicker, like something's watching you, and not just the front desk charging you $42 for parking. Despite all the creepy accounts, the Omni doesn't advertise itself as haunted. It's not a gimmick, it's just a vibe. But if you find yourself staying there, maybe think twice before requesting a high floor with a view. And definitely don't say, "I don't believe in ghosts," out loud in your room. That's like yelling, "I got the oil," at a Diddy party. So next time you're booking a stay in downtown Austin, remember, the Omni offers luxury, great service, and, if you're lucky, your own personal ghost story to take home. Tucked away in the heart of East Austin sat Metz Elementary, a school that opened its doors in 1916 with the noble mission of educating the children of a growing city. It was named after Hamilton Metz, a school board member with a name fancy enough to sound like he wore a top hat everywhere. The school quickly became a staple in the neighborhood, even surviving a controversial push to segregate Spanish-speaking students. Parents squashed that plan with the ferocity of a PTA meeting gone rogue, and Metz carried on as a hub for learning and laughter for decades. Over the years, Metz witnessed world wars, moon landings, bell-bottoms, and the rise of awkward school photos. But time, like a cranky old substitute teacher, eventually caught up with the building. By the late 1980s, the school had become a creaky relic with flickering lights, mysterious drafts, and floors that groaned louder than a Monday morning math class. The decision was made to tear it down and rebuild. That's when things got weird. As demolition crews moved in, strange things began to happen. Workers reported hearing giggles echoing through the empty hallways, giggles with no gigglers in sight. Chalkboards that had been clean would suddenly have doodles and math equations appear overnight. Machines would stall for no reason, as if some unseen force was hitting the emergency stop button just for fun. It was like the ghosts of former students had decided they weren't ready for summer vacation to be over. The haunting escalated when a tragic accident claimed the life of a demolition worker. That moment cemented the sense that something, or someone, was still lingering on campus. A priest was called in to bless the site, and although the holy water may have offered some comfort, it didn't seem to convince the spirits to pack their bags and head toward the light. The old building came down eventually, but the sense of unease remained. A new Metz Elementary was built, shiny and modern, with all the bells and whistles, minus the ghosts, or so they hoped. Paranormal investigators started picking up strange audio, like faint voices commenting on school lunches or giggling in empty rooms. Some even claimed they felt the presence of children, their playful energy still swirling through the cafeteria and gym like a permanent recess. Locals still talk about the strange sightings. A janitor once claimed he saw a little girl in outdated clothes walk right past him and disappear into thin air. Another swore he saw a boy peeking at him through a bathroom window, only to find no one there when he checked. And then there's the laughter, soft and distant, like kids telling knock-knock jokes from the beyond. It's the kind of thing that'll make you think twice about visiting after dark. Now closed and abandoned, Metz Elementary has become a magnet for ghost hunters, urban explorers, and people who like their history with a side of spooky. Some say it's the most haunted school in Austin. Others just say it's creepy enough without needing ghosts. Either way, the place holds a strange energy that seems to whisper through the walls, reminding anyone who visits that, once upon a time, this was a place full of life, learning, and maybe just a few lingering spirits who never wanted recess to end. So if you ever find yourself near the old Metz grounds and hear the sound of laughter with no kids in sight, don't be alarmed. Just remember, you're not being haunted. You're just getting a pop quiz from the other side. Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill in Austin, Texas. Looks like the kind of place where you'd go for a hearty chicken and waffle brunch, not where you'd expect to dodge poltergeists between bites. But surprise, those jalapeno grits might come with a side of ghost. Tucked away on Red River Street, Moonshine occupies one of the oldest buildings in the city. Originally a trading post in the 1850s, this place has been everything from a dry goods store to a saloon to a, wait for it, mortuary. So yeah, the ghosts didn't just walk in off the street. They've had a lease here longer than anyone. The current setup, with its cozy patio, twinkling lights, and southern comfort food, might fool the casual diner. But beneath the floorboards, there's a past that's more paranormal activity than Paula Deen. There's an old wine cellar down there that once stored Mustang grape wine and maybe, just maybe, the occasional restless spirit. It's the kind of place where you drop a fork and wonder if gravity did it, or Gertrude the ghost is just feeling sassy today. Moonshine's ghosts aren't your typical moan-in-the-hallway types. No, they like to get involved. One manager flipped off the office light only to have a printer tray fly across the room like a ghostly toddler had just lost their patience. "Not today, Karen." You could almost hear the spirit scream. Another time, a staffer prepping for Thanksgiving heard a crashing sound and found a tray of glasses smashed all over the floor. Classic angry ghost move. No one likes to be left out of the holiday feast, even if you've been dead for 100 years. And then there's the air conditioner guy. Poor dude just came to change the air filter. Instead, he got pelted with flying barware and ran out yelling like he'd just walked into an exorcism. To this day, his replacement insists on working only during daylight hours, presumably with a crucifix in one hand and duct tape in the other. Guests aren't safe either. People have reported glasses shattering mid-air like some invisible hand just couldn't deal with another overpriced cocktail. Others swear they felt taps on the shoulder, only to turn around and find no one there, except maybe the faint smell of old cigars and sass. One diner watched a pitcher of water fly 4 feet across the patio, like it had Olympic ambitions. And if you ask the staff, they'll tell you, this kind of thing happens more than it should. So who are these invisible instigators? Theories swirl around the building's former residents, an old family who lived and died there long ago. Some blame the floods from nearby Waller Creek that took lives in the early 1900s. Whoever they are, they're not evil, just a little dramatic. Think of them like the theater kids of the ghost world, always making an entrance, always needing attention, and never knocking first. Moonshine has even earned a spot on many local haunted hotspot lists, and some say the staff is required to know the building's paranormal history before they can clock in. You know you're in a haunted joint when your employee handbook includes ghost protocol right next to the fire safety section. Imagine calling in sick because a glass levitated again. HR must be wild. In the end, Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill is the kind of place where you can enjoy a warm meal, cold drink, and the occasional supernatural show. You'll leave with a full stomach, a smile on your face, and maybe a mysterious cold spot lingering around your ankles. Buffalo Billiards on 6th Street felt like stumbling into a neon Wild West oasis. Picture 23 pool tables, foosball, dartboards, pinball machines, your classic dive meets arcade meets cowboy saloon. The building's bones go way back to 1861 when it was the Missouri Hotel, a rowdy boarding house and rumor factory. When the door opened on Buffalo Billiards in the late 90s, it practically whispered, "Welcome, desperados," and maybe a ghost or two. You came for the shots and shuffleboard, but you stayed for the atmosphere, literally. People joked that the place had more spirits behind the bar than any patron could down in a night, and they weren't wrong. A few forget the price of their beer by dawn, but ghosts, those stuck around. First up on the spectral shuttle roster, the woman in white. She's usually spotted drifting on the staircase, Victorian dress flowing, eyes piercing. She doesn't glare per se, but gives off that "y'all better behave" energy. She doesn't haunt the bathrooms or creep on your date. She just watches. Judgmental and elegant, like your grandmom, but less forgiving. Then there's the pint-sized poltergeist, aka kid ghost. You might arrive in the morning and find chalky handprints on the pool tables. Hey bud, no kids allowed. But apparently someone never got the memo. Or did, and just thought it was funny. Footsteps, half-heard giggles bouncing across the tiles. It's enough to make you wonder who's more mischievous, the supernatural child or the drunk apprentice bartenders. But the crown jewel of this haunted hall? Fred, the bartender from beyond, eternally tipped back in a stool. He's a prankster poltergeist extraordinaire. Stools shake under unsuspecting falls. Chairs are unstacked. Liquor bottles mysteriously uncork themselves, and umbrellas might follow you home if Fred's in a fancy mood. He's the kind of ghost who's first to arrive at happy hour, last to leave, and always screaming for more attention. Ghost narcissist alert. Fred's favorite pastime? Shoulder taps on unsuspecting women. Gentle, ghostly flirting with a mischievous streak. But here's where it really gets good. Management was so charmed, they poured him a morning shot before opening. Fred's happy, we're happy, they'd say. And honestly, who are we to argue with a bartender from the ether? Legend has it, a Fox News crew once caught him on tape. During a segment, someone asked, "Fred, what do you want?" Mixed in with the ambient bar noise came a disembodied Irish accented whisper. "All I want is a wee bit of attention." Fred, taking ghostly pride in performance art since the late 19th century. Fred's pièce de résistance involved an exit sign that started shaking aggressively and then detonated in a blaze of neon fireworks. No vandalism, no explanation, just typical Tuesday. Management chalked it up to Fred's dramatic flair. After all, if you're going to haunt, ghost big or go home. When Buffalo Billiards closed in 2020, many worried Fred and his crew would pack it in. But near as anyone can tell, they're still there, lurking between booths and eyeing newcomers. If the spot ever reopens, maybe under its original name, don't be surprised if that woman in white give you the side eye, the kid rearranges your chalk, and Fred pours his own shot again. Back in 1896, Judge Charles A. Wilcox decided he wanted a house that screamed Victorian charm with a whisper of future paranormal activity. So, he built a lovely mansion just west of downtown Austin. Fast forward a few decades, and this once stately home had gone through more costume changes than a Broadway star, turning into a rental property, a co-op for the free spirits of the 70s, and eventually falling into disrepair. That is, until a woman named Jill Beckford saw its potential, gave it a facelift, and turned it into the charming boutique hotel now known as Austin's Inn at Pearl Street. Little did she know she was also opening a bed and breakfast for the dearly departed. From the moment renovations began, strange things started happening. Tools would vanish, lights would flicker even when the power was out, and weird music could be heard floating through empty hallways like a ghost DJ spinning Victorian lullabies. It was as if the spirits were saying, "Thanks for fixing the place up. Now, good luck sleeping." But let's talk about the headliner of this haunted inn, the Lady in White. Guests and staff alike have spotted her drifting through the halls, carrying 2 babies in her arms. She often heads toward a rocking chair, sits down, and starts gently rocking them to sleep. Honestly, she sounds like the ultimate ghost nanny, except for the whole being dead thing. It's either incredibly sweet or deeply unsettling. Depends on how you feel about ghost babies. Then again, some guests report seeing her without the babies, crying and wandering like she lost them in some tragic supernatural mix-up. It's the ghost version of "Where did I put my keys?" but with more weeping and dramatic flair. It makes you want to leave out a bottle and pacifier just in case. And if you like a little audio with your hauntings, you're in luck. Guests have reported loud thuds in empty rooms, mysterious whispers when no one else is around, and creaky floorboards that seem to groan just to let you know they're alive, or dead, but active. The inn practically doubles as a soundstage for ghostly ASMR. Even the staff has their share of spooky stories. Towels mysteriously rearrange themselves, doors that lock or unlock on their own, and that unmistakable feeling that someone's watching you while you're just trying to refill the mini soap dispensers. It's like working with co-workers who float and vanish on lunch break. But the owner and staff aren't looking to do a ghost eviction anytime soon. They say the spirits are more protective than problematic. In fact, they believe the ghosts help keep the good vibes going, like little invisible concierges who occasionally spook you into leaving a 5-star review. So, if you're ever in Austin and want more than just tacos and live music, book a night at Austin's Inn at Pearl Street. Sure, you might not get a full 8 hours of sleep, but you will get a story to tell. And maybe even a lullaby from a spectral babysitter who just wants her ghost kids to rest easy. Let me sweep you into the storied world of the Paramount Theater in Austin, Texas. A century-old marvel perched on Congress Avenue that feels less like a building and more like a living performance piece, complete with drama, comedy, and the occasional ghostly cameo. First up, its grand debut. Built in 1915 and first known as the Majestic, this architectural gem was the brainchild of John Eberson, famed for creating atmospheric theaters that transported audiences into magical realms. From the original hand-painted fire curtain, still lowering over late-night screenings, to the rope and sandbag system behind the scenes, a true hemp house in theatrical speak, everything feels dripping with history. Come 1930, the Majestic shed its old identity and re-emerged as the Paramount. With plush new seats, state-of-the-art air conditioning, a major draw in Texas, and that towering illuminated blade sign, it became a social landmark, hosting Houdini's escapes, Katharine Hepburn's elegance, the Marx Brothers' antics, Duke Ellington's brass brilliance, and that's just naming names to get you excited. Fast forward past mid-century lull to the 1970s, and passionate preservationists breathed new life into the theater. The blade sign was restored, the opera boxes returned, and the place revived into a cultural mecca. Today it hosts classic film series, rock concerts, comedy specials, and blending heritage with contemporary flair. Now, on to the good stuff, the ghost stories. First, meet Emily, a plaintive figure in white, said to glide along the mezzanine as if eternally searching for a soldier husband. Hit pause, mid-watch, and glance toward the balcony. She's rumored to vanish into the south wall as soon as you notice. Then there's Walter, the sweet-toothed projectionist who supposedly shuffled off this mortal coil during a screening. Cleaning crews swear the bar stools spin on their own at night. Walter's snack time signal, perhaps. He's known to tinker with projection equipment unless someone leaves a candy or soft drink in his honor. Backstage, staff whisper about Charlie, the overzealous stagehand who died in a backstage accident. He's accused of bumping equipment doors and making faint footsteps wander through empty wings, like some spectral prop crew still fueling the midnight show. Believe it or not, the theater also harbors a mischievous former owner, some say original projectionist, who apparently fusses with the soundboard. Legend has it, he turned down a Steely Dan CD once because he disapproved of the taste. Volume sliders glide downwards of their own accord, much to the dismay of unsuspecting managers. Over in the auditorium, seasoned observers recount eerie sightings. A translucent figure in photos taken during sound check, sudden cold spots in seats, flickering lights, phantom footsteps echoing up the aisles. It all adds up to an immersive theater experience, albeit one that sometimes comes with a ghostly co-star. Despite these supernatural extras, or maybe because of them, the Paramount remains a beloved Austin cultural institution. Visitors come for the films, stay for the ambiance, and maybe, just maybe, see something unexpected floating by during the onstage encore. So next time you visit, take your seat, perhaps in the mezzanine. Listen for a shuffle in the wings, and if a cold breeze drifts by, it might just be Emily, Walter, or Charlie reminding you. At the Paramount, the show never really ends. It just changes acts. Picture this stately Greek revival wonder in the heart of Austin. White columns standing tall, framed by live oaks that could tell stories of their own. Built in the mid-19th century, it's the oldest continuously used governor's residence west of the Mississippi. You can practically hear the echoes of political footfalls mingling with era-old gossip in every creaky floorboard. Once upon a time, the mansion was modest by royal standards. Humble rooms, no plumbing, no fuss. Over the years it grew, swallowed up additions like some bureaucratic magic trick, until the place blossomed into a sprawling estate full of chandeliers and grand hallways. Think of it as an ambitious fixer-upper that never stopped renovating itself, each first family adding a touch of flair. A dramatic chapter occurred when fire nearly claimed this historic icon. In the late 2000s, a Molotov cocktail turned the mansion into an unintended inferno, but preservationists rallied in time. Amid scaffold and soot, they resurrected it better and brighter. A phoenix in colonial brick, ready for its next scene. But the mansion's heart beats with stories darker than political scandal. On one moonlit night, you might imagine spotting two sorrowed souls wandering, keepers of doomed love. A young Texas scout and his Comanche sweetheart, bound by fate and family anger, met tragedy together. Today, some say their shadows hand-in-hand drift across the lawn, forever youth-stricken, forever mournful. Inside, there's a tale of unrequited romance turned tragic. A governor's nephew, heart heavy with rejection, ended his life in one upstairs chamber. Ever since, staff speak of Sundays filled with soft sobs, shivering cold patches, and doorknobs turning on their own. If you're sensitive to heartsick hauntings, stick to the main hallway. And don't think the spirits of the famous elude this place. The ghost of Sam Houston himself supposedly reappears, not to rally troops, but to flick on the light above his portrait. Even when turned off, the switch flips back, because if you're going to haunt a mansion, you need the right ambiance. Another restless soul is reportedly a Victorian maid, dismissed over pregnancy scandal. Her ghost drifts by the front entrance in rustling gown, as if still seeking employment, or at least an apology for lost innocence. She might be trying to deliver energy efficiency tips we never knew we needed. Today, the mansion operates like a theatrical stage. Its cast includes politicians, tourists, and possibly some spectral performers. A visit opens the door to political tales and structural elegance, sure, but stick around long enough and you might sense laughter echoing among the phantoms. The most hair-raising part? Politicians can't ghost bust. So, if you ever find yourself wandering the corridors, do at least one polite thing for the ghostly crowd. Mind the lighting, and maybe offer a soft howdy. You could make a friend or two in ways you won't soon forget. On the edge of Austin, nestled a little too cozily next to a centuries-old cemetery, there once stood a Home Depot that never quite felt normal. Customers came for plywood and power tools, but many left with goosebumps and ghost stories. The building was massive, but it always felt like it had eyes, especially in the garden section, where the plants weren't the only things watching you grow. Employees used to whisper about a spirit named Fred, or was it Herbert? Nobody ever agreed. He was said to be a handyman who loved the smell of sawdust so much, he stuck around long after his body clocked out. Legend has it his ashes were scattered near the greenhouse, which would explain the weird chill that hit your spine right around aisle 17, next to the begonias. One evening, a young stalker was unloading pallets near the outdoor section when the motion lights blinked off for a second. In that flash of darkness, the stalker swore he saw a figure, mustache, flannel, steel-toe boots, just standing there glaring like someone who didn't appreciate you moving his mulch. When the lights flicked back on, the man was gone. but the smell of cigarette smoke lingered like an old memory. Truck drivers hated delivering after sundown. Some claimed to see glowing orbs floating by the loading dock. Others heard faint hammering from inside the walls. Tap, tap, tap. Like someone was building something, or maybe undoing it. The creepiest story came from a guy who refused to come back after seeing a misty figure drift right through the cinder block wall, carrying what looked like a tool belt from the 1960s. The night crew eventually refused to enter the greenhouse without backup. Someone hung up a spare apron labeled Fred in the break room, and no one dared touch it. Tools would vanish, then reappear in strange places. Potted plants tipped over on their own. One cashier even quit after hearing whispers over the intercom that no one was using. There's the tale of a woman who wandered into the greenhouse at dusk, just looking for potting soil. She saw a man standing near the tomato plants, motionless and pale. When she blinked, he was walking, but straight through a wooden pallet like it wasn't even there. She dropped her basket and ran, leaving her trowel and dignity behind. Even after the store closed down, the hauntings didn't. People who drive past the old site late at night swear they see figures pacing the fenced-off garden area. Some hear faint beeping, like forklifts backing up. Others claim the automatic doors still open on their own, triggered by nothing but cold wind, or maybe something colder. Now it just sits there, vacant, quiet, but never quite empty. Urban explorers say the lights inside still flicker. They hear footsteps when no one's there. If you go poking around, be careful not to trip over anything, especially Fred. He may be a ghost, but he still runs a tight store. If walls could talk, the Driskill Hotel in Austin, Texas would never shut up. And honestly, we'd all be better for it. Built in 1886 by Colonel Jesse Driscoll, a cattle baron with more money than sense, the hotel was meant to be a symbol of his wealth and Southern charm. Unfortunately for Jesse, he lost the place just a few years later in what might be the most expensive poker game in Texas history. But legend has it, Jesse never really left. Guests still claim to smell cigar smoke in the air when there's no one puffing nearby. Just Jesse, checking in on his investment and judging people's cowboy boots. And then there's the staircase. Oh, the grand sweeping staircase that screams haunted drama. Folks say the ghost of a little girl still plays there, giggling as she chases a ball that never quite rolls into view. She's often seen running down the hallway, just out of reach, like a Victorian Scooby-Doo episode on loop. Some guests even swear they've felt a cold rush as if a small, invisible someone just brushed past them, hopefully not headed to the minibar. But nothing sends chills down the spine like room 525. This room has seen not one, but two tragic brides take their own lives, 20 years apart, in the same bathtub. Some believe the room holds a sadness that clings like heavy humidity. Guests brave enough to stay there report flickering lights, water turning on by itself, and mirrors that seem to fog up with words no one wrote. And if you spot a ghostly woman in a wedding dress browsing the hallway with shopping bags, don't worry, she's just doing some afterlife retail therapy. Not to be outdone, the elevators are reportedly haunted by a man in an old-fashioned suit who silently rides them up and down, never getting off, unless you count the time he vanished into thin air. And when he does step off, it's usually into your nightmares. One poor bellhop once quit on the spot after riding the elevator with him, not realizing he was the only one who couldn't see the guest. Oh, and then there's the scent of roses. It'll hit you suddenly. Strong, sweet, and absolutely not coming from anyone's perfume. That's believed to be a former housekeeper still lingering around, making sure the guests are happy and the sheets are properly tucked. She's the kind of ghost you want in your room, really. Tidy, quiet, and only occasionally terrifying. People have also seen shadowy figures peeking from behind curtains, chairs moving by themselves, and even disembodied whispers when they're brushing their teeth. One guest claimed a ghost kept changing the TV channel during a romantic comedy marathon, presumably because the ghost had better taste. Others say their belongings have mysteriously moved, disappeared, or just ended up in completely different rooms. Either these ghosts are playful or petty. Despite all the spooky activity, the Driskill is still one of the most beloved hotels in Texas. Presidents have stayed there, celebrities have partied there, and countless ghost hunters have tried to make contact with its spectral residents. Some check in hoping for a good night's sleep. Others check in hoping to meet someone who's been dead for 120 years. Either way, they rarely leave disappointed. So, if you ever find yourself walking the marble floors of the Driskill, keep your eyes peeled and your EMF reader handy. You might bump into a mischievous child, a heartbroken bride, or a stern-looking cowboy who just wants one more hand of poker. And whatever you do, don't ignore the roses or the cigar smoke. They're just the hotel's way of saying, "Welcome. You may leave, but we'll be seeing you." Thanks for joining me on this haunted journey through the most chilling spots in Austin, Texas. From ghostly governors to haunted hotels and spirits that just won't check out, this city has no shortage of spine-tingling tales. If you enjoyed creeping through the shadows with me, go ahead and smash that subscribe button like a ghost, slamming a door at 3 a.m. Your support means everything. It keeps this channel alive, unlike some of the characters we talked about today. And if you've had your own ghostly run-in in Austin or anywhere else, drop it in the comments. I love hearing your paranormal stories. Who knows, maybe your tale will be featured in a future video. Don't forget to like, share, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss our next haunted adventure. We've got more creepy content coming, and trust me, you won't want to face the spirits alone. Until next time, keep your eyes open, your flashlight ready, and whatever you do, don't look behind you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.